In an alley in the Temerian city of Dorian, one can find a sign that reads Codringher and Fenn, Consultation and Legal Service. While to most they might seem like lawyers, their work has actually very little to do with the law, and they mostly dealt with very shady clientele. If you had a problem, needed proof of a business partner cheating you, a spouse's love to disappear, get a person out of jail, or get a good loan from the bank, or just make someone vanish forever, Codringher and Fenn are the solution to anyone who has a problem that needs to be solved. The two were very aware of the dangers they often put themselves in, and they had made sure to make it difficult for intruders to bother them. There was no door that led directly into the first floor of the building. All there is a solid heavy locked gate leading to the stables. To get to Codringher and Fenn, you actually have to go around the back of the house, up the stairs and walk through a dark corridor, where you would find the actual door. A studded mahogany wooden door, which could kill potential intruders. There was a mechanism built into the door that could shoot 20-inch long iron spikes from these concealed holes, to quickly deal with any unwanted guests. It would trigger automatically when someone tried to pick the lock, but could also manually be operated by Codringher whenever there was an unknown person at the door. Geralt assumed that there was some kind of magical device hidden in the door, which would allow them to identify who stood outside before they opened or fired the door. But even those who were on good terms with the partners inside knew that you should not stand in front of the door, as mechanisms can sometimes fail and accidentally fire a spike into you. Something like this had actually happened shortly before Geralt visited them in Time of Contempt, where the mechanism misfired and killed a Hulker, after which Codringher disassembled the device. Whenever someone visited Codringher and Fenn, they always would only get to meet Codringher. Many therefore suspected that Fenn didn't exist, and was in fact just made up to confuse bailiffs and tax collectors, who Codringher detested. Upon entering, you would meet Codringher, who was a short, thin, grizzled man who has the unhealthy skin of someone who almost never gets fresh air. He would take the visitor inside the office, which was the topmost room of the building, with barred windows that would let in sunlight for most of the day, and he would sit in an armchair and take a black and white tomcat on his lap, while gazing at their visitor with yellowish green eyes. Codringher always wanted to be addressed as a lawyer, and in a way he saw himself as a modern day Witcher. In a world where monsters were becoming rarer, the Witchers would lose their jobs, but there would always be bad people to get rid of. And like Witchers, Codringher gladly took money for his work. Codringher, however, mostly didn't care who he worked for, as long as they could pay. He would even say that he had no conscience, and like plenty of others, he only cared about getting paid. Around the time of Contempt, Codringher had taken an interest in a new type of weapon, a Orion, a metal star which you could throw with great accuracy. He would often practice using them by throwing them at the painting of his father, who he thought was an idiot. His father had long since passed, but Codringher's own health was not great. He was constantly coughing heavily, and would sometimes cough up blood. Both he and Fenn knew that there was a very limited time left for him, as no amount of gold or coin could cure him. And whilst Codringher had his health issues, so did Fenn. Jacob Fenn was a midget, a small person who also had the issue of not having legs, which forced him to remain in a kind of wheelchair, which he would move around the hidden backroom of the office between the bookcases. Whilst Codringher would be the one who handled business and talked to customers, Fenn would be researching, only having been seen by very few, which caused the rumor that he actually didn't exist, or that he was Codringher's cat. Codringher and Fenn became known as the people who you would go to if you wanted problems solved. They would not only deal with normal customers, but if they got paid, also would do research and gather information for intelligence agencies, like for example Temeria's. However, their information was not always to be trusted, especially if you paid them for information on someone who was already a client of theirs, who paid more. With most of the non-spoilery aspects covered, from now on there will be spoilers for Time of Contempt, and quite possibly the third season of the Netflix show. At the start of Time of Contempt, Geralt visits Codringher and Fenn. He had a job for them, as he wanted to know who Rience was working for, after he had run in with him and the Michelet brothers in Oxenford. A few weeks before Geralt visited too, Dandelion also paid a visit to give some information upfront about what Geralt wanted. But Dandelion, probably for the first time ever, was said to have given too little information. But regardless of this, Codringher and Fenn started their research into Rience, and they looked into his past activities and his current whereabouts, from his training at Barnard, where he was expelled, to his activities in the Cadwenny Secret Service, and eventual short imprisonment in Sintra by Calanth for some debts he had. They found that his debts were suddenly paid off, with interest via the banks, and after going through a number of the banks to find out who paid, Codringher and Fenn saw it as a dead end and gave up. But they knew that whichever sorcerer was behind Rience was a powerful and influential one, seeing how Philippa protected Rience and prevented Geralt from getting to him. They had made a list of about 28 mages, and they suspected that one of them would be the one Geralt was looking for. During the conversation, Geralt was not very impressed by what Codringher had found, as a large part of what Rience had done he was already very familiar with. And, to Geralt, it was very important that Ciri was safe, which led to Codringher spreading rumors that Ciri had died a few years ago after Sintra fell. However, it would not be enough to get everyone off her back, and Geralt wanted a solution from them, and he wanted to know that they would not betray him. And thus Codringher introduced Geralt to Fenn, whom Geralt just moments before had assumed either didn't exist or was just a cat's name. Codringher and Fenn offered a few solutions to Geralt's problem. They first thought about starting rumors of Ciri being a legitimate heir, as according to Cintrian rules, only men could inherit the throne. But they came to the conclusion that this likely wouldn't be effective as hoped. And so they had another solution, as they had found a girl of Ciri's age, who came from a noble Cintrian family and looked a lot like Ciri. They wanted to make people think that she was the Lion Cub of Sintra, and so when people got their hands on the fake Ciri, the real one might be safe. But Geralt refused to let an innocent girl possibly get killed, and he declined the offer. Due to Geralt's disappointment with their solution, he instead requested a different piece of information: where Ciri and Yennefer were, and where they could find those who were pursuing them. 3 thugs, more deadly than the Michelet brothers. As Geralt was about to go to the town of Anchor to intercept the assassins, Codringher offered to sell him a few Orions to help with killing the men, but Geralt refused, as he thought they were too loud. Codringher didn't believe Geralt when he said he could dodge them, and so they did a test. No matter if Geralt would get killed or not, Codringher would still get paid, and he would translate some Elder Speech manuscripts for Geralt related to Ciri's ancestors, which he would send to Yennefer in case Geralt didn't survive. Geralt stood with his back to Codringher as the lawyer aimed the Orion and threw it. Geralt didn't flinch as the Orion missed him, for he could hear that Codringher was aiming to miss. After the Witcher had left, Codringher and Fenn went back to work. Until some time later, they got an unexpected visitor. On the night of the Tennant coup, Codringher and Fenn were looking into the Elven manuscript, which seemed to convince them that Ciri was related to Falca. They learned of Ciri's elder blood, and how her son was supposed to be of great importance, and was most likely what Emhyr was after. The entire case became more interesting for them, and Codringher wanted to join the game for a lot of profit that could be made about the information of Ciri. As Codringher coughed up blood, Fenn told him that no amount of gold would cure him, and neither could it give Fenn his legs back. But Codringher wanted to risk it. He was dying, and this could be his last chance to stay alive a while longer. But whatever Codringher would have wanted to do, it didn't matter, as the two suddenly had 3 unexpected visitors. At first, Codringher thought they would be the men they had hired to take Ciri from Tennant, but he was wrong. Upon opening the door, Codringher pretended to be the butler, and introduced himself as Michael Dulord. He hoped to convince the strangers that Codringher was not present, and he asked if he could be of any service to them. The leader of the 3 men, a tall half-elf named Chiru, told him that he could give a letter to Codringher when he returned. As he took the scroll, a magical red cord unwound from the paper and curled itself tightly around Codringher's wrist. Chiru knew that he was in fact Codringher, and the lawyer lost his balance and fell onto Chiru's dagger. Codringher tried to back away, but Chiru stabbed him again in his belly and thrusted the blade upwards to gut him like a fish, as he gave him the greeting of Rience. Codringher tried to warn Fenn, but he was drowning in his own blood. Chiru told Codringher to go to hell as he stepped over him and headed towards Fenn. Fenn had heard some of the commotion and was ready to defend himself with a crossbow. He fired and killed one of the thugs, instantly with a metal ball to the head. As Fenn tried to reload, Shiro knocked Fenn's chair over with a kick and made sure Fenn couldn't get to his fallen crossbow by kicking it away. Shiro's attention was drawn to the picture of the fake Ciri as Fenn crawled on the floor amidst the papers. Shiro took the image with him along with several documents from the lectern. He took a few quills from the inkwell and lit them on fire. When they burned bright, he threw them on the lectern as the paper immediately caught fire. Shiro emptied a bottle of ink remover from the burning lectern over Fenn as the cripple screamed. To finish him off, he threw a handful of vellum scrolls on Fenn and left as the building with Fenn inside burned down. Codringher and Fenn had quite horrible deaths. They weren't good people per se, they were mainly after money, but they seemed at least to respect Geralt a bit. That was at least until Codringher hoped he could find a cure for himself with the money he could make of Ciri. The girl from the picture would later become the wife of Emhyr, as he was used by Rien's master to try and fool the Emperor, so he could have Ciri for himself. One last thing I want to mention is the change of Fenn in the Netflix show. As in the books, it is clear that Fenn is a man, he's called Jacob, and is referred to as a he, but the show made him a woman. His role is so small that I honestly don't care that they changed it. It adds and removes nothing, and finding an actor with a similar physical condition as Fenn would be very hard, so I understand the change. But what do you think of Codringher and Fenn? Till the next video. Bye.